This week on the Eldritch Lorecast.
Bear form!
Players are much more afraid of opportunity attacks than they need to be.
I am glad that the bear has been nerfed.
Jeremy, I'd like a word.
The fighter is boring, has
The fighter
no
is
choices.
bad, James.
Failure. Is that something that needs to be designed out of the game?
Are we playing 5th edition here? What's going on?
Spectral dragon wings. And I hate that stuff.
I hate the wild magic sorcerer.
Whoa, it's so wacky and random. We don't like that.
And this is why D&D is extremely hard to playtest.
Get off the grid. Get off the grid, Dael.
Never!
All that and more right now.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Eldritch Lorecast, the #1 tabletop RPG podcast that was listened to at Burning Man. At least I'm sure that would be true if they had power to listen to podcasts while they were out there. My name is Ben Byrne, and I am joined, as always, by Dael Kingsmill, Shawn Merwin, James Hake, and James, can I ask, if you were resistant to a damage type, what would it be, or what would you want to be resistant to?
So I'm a gardener in my spare time. I would love to be resistant to piercing damage.
Okay, that's a good answer.
Luckily, I'm not all too scarred up because I've just been out in the desert for a week. But usually I get all sorts of stupid little nicks and cuts all over me.
Yeah, sticks be pointy.
Sticks be pointy.
Dale Kingsmill, what about you?
I feel like I most often suffer psychic damage. People on the internet are really stupid, or someone gives a really powerful pun.
Recording a podcast.
I feel like there's a lot of psychic damage going around, and I would love to be immune.
Right, no, that's fair. That would be handy.
Also,
Shawn
no more
Merwin.
headaches.
I don't know, a headache's psychic damage?
They are, Ben. They are.
All right, I'll go with it. I don't want to inflict any psychic damage here by questioning that logic. Shawn Merwin, what about you?
I live in Western New York near Buffalo, where in the winter we get 2 feet of snow. So when you're out there shoveling 2 feet of snow before work begins, you better be resistant to cold damage or you're not going to survive.
I don't think I would, because that would be my answer as well. I hate the cold weather. People know on a sunny day I can be layered up if it's not, at least 15 degrees minimum. 386 degrees, I'm sure, in Fahrenheit or something.
Yep. That's the conversion.
Yeah.
And now that I live on the edge of a large body of water, that wind is going to come right across and it is going to be brutal out there. So you're all invited. When the snow hits, everyone come on out. We'll have a snow shoveling party.
The latest playtest packet for D&D, the next one, but not D&D Next. That was last time. This is D&D Next Star. Has dropped. How excited are we? Who's read it cover to cover? Who's watched the 1 hour, 20-minute video?
I did my due diligence, okay?
I watched the video and I read bits and pieces.
Okay, great.
I read a lot and I watched bits and pieces of the video.
Okay, cool.
Together we have a complete knowledge of both.
Did any of us pay any attention to the new spells? Because
yes.
I didn't. Great.
One attention. I paid one attention. It was the Counterspell. I think I like the change to Counterspell. It's very different. But I through this playtest, I feel like I can see them trying to address known issues with the game, namely no feels bad, which I am not necessarily a proponent of. I think failure baked into a game is part of what makes it a game, personally. But I get the idea that, like, lack of change feels bad if you just roll and it's just like nothing happens whatsoever.
Ben as a DM is that guy from Oliver, the musical, where he doesn't want to give more food. That's Ben.
You know what's hilarious is when I was in grade 7, I played that very character on stage in a production of Oliver.
Right.
So intimately familiar with saying no. But it's not just, so Counterspell is kind of like, there's a check to see if the spell fails, but no spell automatically fails anymore. And the spell slot is not spent. This is also the fighter has a new ability. I think it kicks in at like 9th or 11th level, where it's like if you miss with an attack, you have advantage against the same target with another attack.
Oh, yeah.
So it's kind of trying to keep momentum going. Anyway,
I have thoughts about that, but I think that doing it in order is a good idea.
You're right.
Making a Constitution save confuses me.
I guess like a concentration check?
Because a concentration check is basically a Constitution save. Like, I know that when I'm talking to new players, if I tell them to make a concentration check and they're confused, I always say, just make a con save.
You're casting a spell. I mean, previously it was a casting ability check from one person, so why isn't it a casting ability check from the guy who's casting this
I haven't read it yet. Is it not like...
I'm going to be facetious here and say, well, if it's a saving throw and the players are casting it on your enemy spellcaster and you roll a save, you can always succeed. If the player is making the check, you can't hide that roll. So they know exactly if they failed or succeeded. With a save...
That's very funny. I want it to be dueling. I want it to be like their concentration versus my... basically spell check. I know that gets a little finicky because there's not like technically a spell check that's not a spell attack, but that it should be.
I mean, this is going into almost a different topic, but I recently saw, I think on somebody's Instagram account, can't recall the name of the account, so I apologize to this person, but they had like, oh, here's a new spell, and it was called like Arcane Sundering or something like that, and it was basically a thunder wave that did a relatively minimal amount of damage, but also dispelled certain effects within that thunder wave area as well. And I was like, oh, that's cool. It's like a counterspell or a dispel magic that kind of does a little bit more to it. And I think what I would want to see to create the sense of a wizard's duel is other counterspell and dispel magic type spells that also did other stuff that could be used to kind of layer back on top. So it's not just a counterspell, but could you, I don't know, psychic whiplash a counterspell so that like the counterspell works, but it does psychic damage to the caster as a reaction or something like that, you know?
I have something I want to say about the barbarian. All right. I'm going to blow all yours minds. Okay. Because do you remember when I rewrote the player's handbook when I got sick and I had a fever and I was just like, I'm going to rewrite everything. And I renamed a bunch of stuff?
Mm-hmm.
I would like to draw your attention to Exhibit A, Your Honor. Here, my barbarian changes listed in brief.
The Wildheart.
The totem warrior now called Wildheart. Right there.
Ooh,
right there.
It is only one word.
It's one word.
Version.
There's no space.
Okay. Well, you better get the lawyers on the line.
The evidence stands for itself.
Right, but you might only have that trademarked in Australia, but not in America.
Rests.
We will make a summary judgment of good job, Dael.
Yeah.
Jeremy,
Yay.
I'd like a word.
Well, you've also got to speak with Sven as well, because that was worked on in conjunction with Baldur's Gate.
Hashtag royalties to Dael.
Well, I have a spicy barbarian take as well. I am glad that the bear has been nerfed. So previously, Totem of the Bear allowed you to have resistance to all damage types except for psychic while raging. Now, the way it works, I actually really like. It's flexible. So when you, as it's written, to my understanding, when you rage, you choose 2 damage types to be resistant to. It's not choose 2 when you level up and that's the 2 you're resistant to forever. It's choose the 2 you want to add to your resistances at rage. So it can be specific to the combat, which I like. But it also means that I didn't think the old bear was overpowered, but I never saw anything else on the battlefield from a barbarian player. I never saw a wolf, never saw an eagle, rarely saw any other subclass, to be honest, in all the times that I was playing. The bear totem was just so good that it wasn't OP, but it meant that it was not really...
Comparatively,
but comparatively...
it was OP.
Exactly, yeah.
Or the rest of them were UP.
LP?
Up?
They were up.
They were up.
Well, they might be going up now, relatively, now that the bear has gone down.
Oh. Oh, good play
That's
away.
true. Yeah. Did they bring the bear
It's like
down
a
or did they
news
bring everyone
headline.
else up?
I really like a sort of minor semantic change that happened there too, where they differentiated every single one of the animal spirits you can call into being. Because Jeremy mentioned this on the video. Some people got the wrong impression that you made a choice at third level that carried through all of your subclass features, when that was not the design intent at all. The design intent was to mix and match. So you weren't kind of choosing a subclass when you picked bear or wolf or eagle.
Which also, I think the change of name carries along with that as well. So Totem Warrior, the reason I changed the name of the class also to Wildheart, don't you forget it, is that I was always a little bit uncomfortable with the choice of Totem Warrior. I don't love the implications of being like, here's a barbarian that's all about being angry and vicious and, whatever. And also let's associate it with totem animals, which, but another thing that comes along with that concept is that you do pick one animal and kind of embody that animal throughout the entire run of that character. And I think that it is cooler when they change it to just be like, no, you're just taking inspiration from different animals, everywhere, all over the place, all the time. I think that's very cool. And looking at, so things like, I still think it's very silly to be able to use strength for stealth, right? I'm still in that camp. But on the other hand, the spider animal ability, whatever it's called, aspect of the spider, there we go, I got there in the end. Aspect of the spider is very cool. The idea that you're just kind of like this master ambusher because you're taking inspiration from a spider. That is very, very cool. I have always been on team don't give barbarians fly just because they're like, I like falcons and now I can fly. I think that's silly, but the spider's very cool.
It's specific and evocative.
It does have a very anime vibe to it of a bear barbarian raging and going, bear form! And then a kind of outline of a bear goes Braw! Behind them, and now they have the power of a bear. Spider form, hush. But they're still angry because they've strength.
I need you to do that in your next D&D game, Ben. I need you to fully commit to this bit.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
We'll be watching
on the next Lorecast live play if that ever happens.
What stood out to other people? We can go in order as Dael wishes, or we can jump all over the shop. I don't mind.
I'm not going to lie. I wanted to go in order so I could tell people about the Wildheart. Coined by Dael Kingsmill.
There was some very interesting discussion between Jeremy and Todd about the nature of the Battle Master, which has had some revisions, but almost more interesting than the revisions, which are still cool and powerful and good, is their consideration, apparently very serious and early consideration, about scrapping the Battle Master for parts and integrating those parts with the core chassis of the fighter class, which is a not unpopular opinion. I've heard many, many, many times on the 5e blogosphere, because people like to say that, the fighter is simple, the fighter is boring, the fighter has no choices.
The fighter is bad, James. It's bad. I'll say it right now.
Well, you can say that. I have no opinion on the quality of the fighter, to be perfectly honest, but that's mostly because I don't play them, which is, I think, an opinion of its own. But ultimately, they chose to go against it because there are many, many, many people, according to their survey data, that really like the simplicity or streamlinedness of the core fighter chassis, and that they don't want to tear apart, and also maybe even more importantly, a lot of people love the Battle Master, and tearing apart a beloved subclass to kind of artificially float up all the other subclasses did not make any sense to them. And that's an interesting little bit of game design there, because it speaks to the highly, highly, highly interconnected nature of what they're trying to do here.
I agree. And it's complicated because I disagree with the premise of, this is a popular subclass, so we shouldn't pull it apart to make the core class better, because I think that's silly. I think people like that subclass so much because it gives them the feeling of what a fighter should be. But I do think it's a really good argument to say, but not everyone does want to play a fighter that way. That is complex. It's, there's a lot to keep track of. You've got this whole additional meta currency. And then on top of that, you have to make a bunch more choices straight away. And I will say, I really like the new core fighter. I think they've figured out finally what the fantasy of the fighter is. And in this case, they've gone, all right, the fantasy of the fighter is that they are just trained for combat. They are ready for combat in a way that no other class is, right? In terms of, we've kept the sort of the crit fishing elements that I don't love. Crit on a 19 or a 20, but then you've got a bunch of things that actually bolster that. And I don't have the document up in front of me, so I don't remember what any of them are called, but I remember being impressed and going, oh, well, actually, you know what? This makes it work. This actually makes it work. And then when you've got the tactical based things where it's just like, if something goes down, you're ready to change pace. If something goes down, your second wind now does a bunch of different things. You are, more, you're bracing yourself. You're steeled for combat in a way that other classes aren't, with your the changes to Indomitable and various things that let you keep upping your health as you go through combat. I think it's just a really tidy example of what happens when you do have kind of a core fantasy in mind.
I'm a big fan of studied attacks at 13th level. Being able to get advantage on your next attack roll before the end of your next turn on a miss is fun, but the kicker here is that there's just no limiter on it, right? It can be your very next attack because you've got 3 attacks per action going on here. And even if you miss on the very last one, well, because it's for the end of your next turn, you've still got that advantage loaded in the chamber for the very next one. So if you've got unlucky dice, you could be pretty constantly rolling with advantage, which is a pretty fun little way to give back to someone whose main shtick is making a whole ton of attacks.
And matches with the crit fishing as well. Sorry, go ahead, Shawn.
Yeah. No, I agree, and I would have rather seen that at a much, much lower level. Because by the time many characters get to 13th level, they're not really missing all that much anyway, with all of the tricks and magic and whatever they have. It's the low-level fighter that suffers from, I rolled a 5. I don't have that much. I don't have a magic weapon yet. I don't have that much. Boy, it would have been great if next turn I could have advantage. So I think it's good and it's there. I think it might be a little too late.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't know. Is it too much to give it to him at 5th level? Swap out Tactical Shift, which lets you move without provoking opportunity attacks when you second win.
Yeah, go for it.
I mean,
why not,
it gives fighters a pretty big 5th level, but hey, I mean...
And Tactical Shift is something that I think will come up more once they're a little bit more into very complicated combats. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Highly tactical, footwork-based combats, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I do quite like Tactical Shift, especially for, in Baldur's Gate at the moment, I'm playing a ranged fighter based on a character that I've always wanted to play in an actual tabletop version of the game. And the idea is that they're a battle master, kind of Odysseus-type character who sits at the back and, commands the battlefield in some respect. And so a lot of their abilities
4E Warlord.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, there you go. But if you get locked, because opportunity attacks can be so dominant on the battlefield, that character gets locked down, then they're suddenly forced to change their fighting style, which for a fighter is not impossible to do, right? You give them short swords or whatever. But movement in 5e always has felt weird because it can often feel like everybody runs in, locks into place, and that's where they stay for the majority of the fight because it's not a good idea to move around. So anything that promotes movement, I'm a big fan of.
Have you, in your experiences playing, this is for everyone, found that players are much more afraid of opportunity attacks than they need to be? They are very afraid to move. And when half the time they don't get hit, the other half the time when they do get hit, it's, you take 8 points of damage.
Yeah. I think when I'm playing with experienced players, absolutely. When I'm playing with new players, they're like, whatever. Like,
Okay, that's interesting.
they're maybe not afraid enough. They've got like
Okay.
2 hit points left. They're like, they'll probably miss, maybe.
This it's an interesting question because I'm sure it's different for different tables, which is probably, inherent to the question, right? But the tables that the combats that I tend to run are often overtuned, not always deliberately, and so like an opportunity attack can be costly for the PCs. But what I find more so, honestly, is that opportunity attacks and the reason there's not much movement on the battlefield are really costly for monsters because they tend to have lower ACs. But also it can be a case of like opportunity attack. All right, I hit. All right, how many smites am I going to pour into this or whatever it is to really take advantage of this this moment in the game? So I have a real love-hate relationship with them.
By
as a
the way,
mechanic.
I mean, just because this loops back in a tiny way, I actually the change to the barbarian that means that you get your reckless attack boost throughout until your next turn. I don't love it. I think that it was always a nice thematic thing, right? That you get something really great now that helps you in your attack, but then it's instant gratification, and then you have to deal with the consequences for the next round. I always liked that. It felt barbarian-y. It felt like it matched rage. It felt like it got to show off that they've got 1,000,000 hit points and resistances. So I don't know. For me, I don't think that was a change that needed to happen, even though it is strictly mechanically speaking, strong and fine and good. I think that I would need a little more thematic convincing.
Sure.
This is an interesting thing to bring up because it's one of those things that feels to me like moving the furniture around. It's a change that I don't think needed to be made. I'm not mad about it. But if they hadn't done anything, I wouldn't have noticed.
I mean, that was going to be one of my questions for everybody, but also for Shawn, because the clip of you asking, what are we doing here, is our like clip on Twitch, if anybody ever clicks on our channel. Do you feel like you're getting a clearer picture of what we're doing here as more of these playtests come along, of what their actual goals are, or is it still pretty obscure?
No, I think it's very, very clear what they're doing now. Do you want me to say what that is?
For those of us.
Okay.
Put it on the record.
All right, on the record, what they're doing now is the least amount of damage possible while still making the players happy.
Sure.
We learned quickly that people were not going to be happy with a new edition, even though we think from above they were told, let's make a new edition. I have a feeling that the game designers, this is just me speculating, I have no inside knowledge of this. I have the feeling that the game designers was like, we have a really good game here that people are still buying. Why do we have to make a new edition? Because we were told to. Well, okay, first packets come out. Here is a bigger type of change that they learned quickly was not popular. Every iteration we've seen so far has sort of moved back toward what 5th edition is at its core, hence the moving the furniture around. So I think right now it's, let's make changes that we think will be fun, that we think the players will like, but let's not change the game. What are the players going to like? The players are going to like having more options, at least the players who they're getting feedback from. They're going to like more options with just a touch of power creep, just a smidge. Not enough that we have to make a new game or make new monsters or make these wholesale changes, but everybody will feel a little more powerful. We're going to hit a little bit more. We're going to hit a little bit harder. We're going to have this, right? The fighter will now hit more often because if they miss, next time they're going to hit. All of these things are sort of building up to what this is going to be. So what do we need to see next? We need to see the monster math. Yeah. We need to see how are the monsters going to change in order to keep up with the little power creep that we've got going on. And the last question is, what does this mean for brand new players? Is it still within the realm of, okay, I can handle this? Are we getting a little bit too forward thinking in terms of the options that we have? I hope not, maybe not, but I still think that we're waiting to see what the acceptance is going to be. In essence, how it's presented, how easy it will be to teach, and where we'll go from there.
In the video released recently, Jeremy talked a lot about Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. He talked a lot about how popular some of the new alternate class features, or whatever they were called, from Tasha's were.
Yeah, the variant features.
They were so strange.
Yeah.
I really, truly disliked them in Tasha's.
Oh, really?
Even though there was some great design going on in there, it was like, what are you doing here? You're now making the
It's
core
errata.
class modular. What's happening here? And which I think truly is what makes me happy is that those variant class features or whatever are now just going to be core class features in the 2024 Player's Handbook. That's great, because there was great design going on in there. The implementation of it was just bizarre. So if this is like, Tasha's 2.0 massaged into core, I'm happy with that. A 5e is a good game, and its flaws are not going to be massaged out with a little bit of playtesting. You'd need to make a new game to massage out its flaws, really. Which is fine. People should be making new games all the time that have new and different flaws from the games that were made before it.
I would just like to call out chat for all singing the monster math. Psychic damage.
It was the monster math.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's what I want to see as well, is, the playtests so far have all been so player focused, and that's probably, I don't know, as it should be, considering they are the majority of people at the table at any given time. But just from the whole, getting people hyped about new books side of things, like, I want to see new and exciting monsters, new and exciting monster abilities, new magic items that can be awarded or not,
An exploration system.
Yeah.
At all.
Who knows? But I would love to see that side of things as well. But I feel like, largely they have, cast a wide net, and now I feel like their design goals, as Shawn said, feel very much towards like trying to fix perceived problems with 5e, such as you hit and you miss and nothing happens. Feels bad, like no feels bad at the tabletop. And the reason I'm coming back around to that is I just, for me personally, maybe we've talked about this before, but like, is that a design goal that is important? Is that something that needs to be designed out of the game? Is failure...
Well, I think it's an oversimplification to say that it's just no feels bad, right? Because I think some classes get no a lot more, and that it is more damaging to the feel of them. We definitely have talked about this before, where it's like, no for a spellcaster is often they still take half damage.
Sure.
Versus no for a fighter is you can't do the one thing you're meant to be good at, and so you don't get to do anything this turn. And that sucks. It reaches beyond the game to make the player feel rubbish, as if they could be bad at a game where it's all determined by a 20-sided die. And I think that just little boosts to areas like that, I think are definitely worthwhile. I don't think we need to get rid of no, but I do think that there are some class designs that need a little extra push.
Sure.
And this, of course, is exacerbated and truly made into a problem rather than just an annoyance by the fact that in D&D, a full round of combat often takes between 20 and 60 minutes. If that were not the case, then I don't think we would need to give fighters this sort of like negative momentum, advantage after a miss sort of situation. It would just be like, oh no, I missed 2 of my 3 attacks. Oh well, my turn will be back in 5 minutes.
Yeah, okay. All right. It's fascinating because now I'm thinking in my head, well, all these added little bits that they're adding, the advantage to the barbarian off their main turn, the fighter now getting advantage, all these tiny little micro moments in the game are obviously adding to the amount of time between everybody's turn. And I feel like we talked about this in one of the really early playtest packets when the rogue first got a look at. They changed it so I can't remember which way it was. It was either, I think it was so the rogue can't sneak attack outside of its turn, or it can only sneak attack once per round. And the argument that was posited was that it speeds up the game round because it it stops the rogue from needing to count dice on every attack that they make if they're making an attack of opportunity or whatever. And so it just feels like the balancing act. I don't have anything greater to say on it other than that it's fascinating. The balancing act between giving them more opportunities. We want
combat to be faster, but we don't want you to take away any of the things that we're going to do on our turn.
Yeah,
right?
sure. And
it's simple.
And
simply
therefore,
just
here, have more things that are going to make your turn feel more worthwhile when it comes around. You know?
Yeah, and the amusing thing is, talking about saying no to a character, the rogue was the thief from 1st and 2nd edition was the one that got the no stick a lot. Because to backstab, you actually needed to be behind the person and they couldn't be aware of you. And so it was very much a narrative-driven thing where you would have to get permission from the game master to do the thing that was so fun to do. 3rd edition, 4th edition, 5th edition fixed that by saying, well, in these 7 different areas, you can do your sneak attack if you check any of these boxes. So that put it back into the player's hands, and the game master couldn't say no to that. And that made the thief or the rogue feel so great, so powerful. The player could control that. And so they were fixed from that no problem. And now we're seeing these other classes starting to come around to finding ways to make them immune to the no.
I believe Jeremy phrased it as Mother May I in previous videos, those style of mechanics where the GM has to, in some regard, give permission to the player. The sorcerer, the wild magic sorcerer, has gotten a bit of a fix, which just allows the player to basically choose once between long rests, I believe it is. I don't have it right in front of me. When to just roll on the chaos magic chart or the wild magic chart. And then they can recharge that ability before a long rest via ways.
In ways in which you can.
Do we like this change? Do we have opinions on this change?
I think it's good that they've clarified when it'll happen. It was very murky before because it was just like, it can happen. Every time it came up, it was like, it could happen. And it's like, okay, but does it though? Yeah. This is the rule book. There's nowhere else to look. So it is nice having that clarification just to be my tricky thing is that I've never been in love with the wild magic sorcerer. I've been in love with the broad concept of the wild magic sorcerer, but none of the implementation. So I don't think I am qualified necessarily to actually speak on this. I think I'm too biased. But things like I like the what's it called? The one where you get like advantage on a roll and there's the idea
of chaos.
That it must be that one. So you get advantage on a roll, and if you want to use it again, you explode, and there's a wild magic burst. I should have pulled up the whole. James, you look like you've got something to say. I'll figure out what I'm saying in a minute.
I quite like most of what they've done with the sorcerer, except for one thing. And it's so weird. It feels like it contradicts the core philosophy of 5th edition. It's their first level feature, innate sorcery. As a bonus action, you can unleash the boiling sorceress magic within it. This is something Jeremy was very, very proud of. It's thematically very, very wonderful in his mind, and I agree. It's thematically very wonderful. As a bonus action for the next minute, you have advantage on attack rolls of spells you cast. Great, love it. And the spell save of your spells increases by 1? Are we playing 5th edition here? What's going on? It wasn't the whole point of advantage and disadvantage to rid us of the curse of fiddly situational +1s and -1s to rolls and DCs and stuff like that? That's the sort of bookkeeping that drives me crazy. What are we doing adding this back in here?
I feel like that was maybe a complete speculation, but a change that, like, enforcing disadvantage on a spell save, especially for a spell like Fireball that can affect multiple targets. They probably found that was incredibly overbearing versus just ticking the spell save DC up by 1. I don't disagree with you on the bookkeeping side of things, but I love this ability.
Thing that a computer and a digital tabletop will handle for you. I'm just saying, it's still there. The elements are still there.
This ability feels incredibly thematic to me of a sorcerer, just like, their eyes glow and they lift off the ground and now they're, really unleashing their magic potential that's roiling inside them, all the great things J. Craw said. But it also, to me, this one feature gives me a reason to play a sorcerer and not a wizard. Because I never enjoyed playing sorcerers before. The sorcery points always felt too few to be able to really get advantage of their use over having a wizard's spellbook. And largely, they felt like the advantages that some of the subclasses of the wizard would have anyway. The evoker's ability to stop allies taking damage from their area of effect spells was a better version of a meta magic option, which did a similar sort of thing. This, however, your spells hit harder than a wizard's can because you are unleashing magic rather than, writing it, so to speak. It feels thematically good to me, but also mechanically really separates the sorcerer from the wizard. It's like the wizard is the fighter and the sorcerer is the barbarian.
I think that's a great comparison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
I think Jeremy even made a similar comparison, calling it almost like an arcane rage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I found the thing. So basically, you use Tides of Chaos, give yourself advantage on a D20 test, and then you can't use that again until you finish a long rest. But the next time you cast a leveled sorcerer spell or just any spell? Yeah, leveled sorcerer spell. When you don't have that feature, you automatically explode and roll on the wild magic table, and then it comes back and you could use Tides of Chaos again. That is cool design. I really, really like that. I really like that the wild magic surge. Really like is strong. Basically, you're not in control of the wild magic surge anymore. It's not you decide when it happens. It's if you are rolling a leveled sorcerer spell, then you have to roll a d20 die alongside it, that if you get a 20, you get a wild magic surge. That one's like, give or take, but I like that you're not in control of it. Bend Luck is still weak sauce. Weak. Let's bring that up to par. And I will say Wild Bombardment is a little bit bizarre. It's a little bit finicky, right? So this is the level 18 feature. Immediately after you cast a sorcerer spell with a spell slot, you can create an effect of your choice from the Wild Magic Surge table, provided the effect casts a spell or restores all of your extended sorcery points. And at that point, I'm just like, so it's not wild magic. I know that we're like kind of getting to the point where we're saying you're in control of it. But if you can't choose from the whole table, don't even hit me with that. Don't even bring that to me.
Can't argue.
I feel opposed in general to being able to pick off the wild magic table. So yeah, I'm with you on that. I would rather have like a D10 table of really strong, good wild magic things that you get to roll on instead.
I'm a little biased because the last 2 character deaths that I've had at tables I've run have because exactly of wild magic happening.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Not for the 2 characters that died.
Yeah.
For me, it was glorious.
Delightful.
It was delightful,
Yeah,
yes.
I'm going to be a little spicier than Dael and say that I hate the wild magic sorcerer. I do not love it. It always
like
felt
that, Sam, I am.
It always felt like a weird subclass to be in the player's handbook alongside the draconic sorcerer, right? It feels like there should have been, and this is going to sound odd, but it felt like there was no champion fighter of the sorcerer. There was no just like, I am a sorcerer. You had the option between draconic, which is pretty flavored, or like just craziness, kind of wild magic chaos sorcerer,
right.
you know?
Well, I'm with you, because you and I have talked about this before. We don't love that it's the, whoa, it's so wacky.
Whoa,
we don't like
what
that.
What could happen?
Yeah, that's why I rewrote my entire thing. I was like, I don't like this table. I'm redoing it. But for me, I want the wild magic sorcerer to be that, because I feel like the idea of like the seventh son of a seventh son who just through happenstance just has magic and can't control it. I think there's something there flavor-wise. But I'm with you. I don't love the implementation of it, but a lot of people do. And that's like, it's like the World Tree Barbarian is the new subclass for the Barbarian. And I was reading it, I was like, this is all silly. I don't like this. But I had to stop and recognize that that's because I don't like it when barbarians are too magic.
Yeah,
that's just a me issue. That's lots of people love those subclasses, and lots of people love the wacky randomness. And so there is just some things that I do have to let go.
And fundamentally, speaking to the barbarian, less the wild magic sorcerer, I think the more magic, even non-spellcasting classes are, the better, the more D&D they are. I won't say better, but the more D&D they are.
I just don't like it. There was a thing that Crawford said in the video where he specifically said
barbarians are inherently magical.
Yeah, there's this part where there's this zone in which barbarians and monks as well, they're just a little bit magic. And I was like, no, they aren't. Get it out of there. Get it out of the Ranger 2 while you're at it. Give me more marshals. Because I have strong feelings.
So very slight Baldur's Gate spoilers. It's not for the plot. It's for something else. But I'll put a timestamp down below if you're watching this on YouTube, Twitch chat. I apologize. It's very slight spoilers. There's a character that you get in your camp who appears to be a lich. They're not a party member. They just hang out in your camp. And when you go and talk to them, they can give you stuff. And one of those things appears to be, if you have a character from your party who dies dead, then this lich can resurrect them for a cost and bring them back, right? And I just went, oh, no, death means nothing. like D&D's perchance to just be like, because magic, I don't know, it works. Like, don't worry about it. You know, and I have that same feeling about the barbarian. Is like, no, they take half damage, not because they're magical, it's because they just feel no pain in the moment, you know, like psychologically they can't be taken down.
The idea, they exist in a zone of magic really bugged me because they're based on things. They're based on real things. Berserkers in Vikings were real.
Sure. Totally. But there's so much in the rules that you can explain through magic and you can not explain through magic. And designing for 5e, it is so much harder to design something that isn't magical, which is why I think a lot of the time it's just like, it's magic. Don't worry about it. It works.
I'm always on the hunt for those things, right? Like one tiny change in this that I did like is the Draconic Sorcerer, when it got its wings originally, they were spectral dragon wings, and I hate that stuff. I hate.
And they walked it back.
This is just Ben and Dael's complaining hour. Get it out of here.
Go play Warhammer Fantasy.
But no, I mean, it was just one of those things. It's like so many things will pop up. It happens a bunch in the Artificer as well.
Yes,
or like the Forge Cleric, where it's like they'll say like a thing after an hour of working with these tools, a thing will magically appear. And I'm like, why is it magically appearing?
Just like,
you spent an hour making it.
Just like you hold your tools and you press it against an object and now it turns magically into something. And it's like, yeah.
I hate it. But the spectral wings are now just wings. You just sprout wings. And I wish you weren't sprouting the wings. I wish you just had the wings. But I will take it. I will take it over spectral wings.
When we first met the Barbarian back in first edition days, they were so against magic that they would not even be in a party with wizards. They tolerated other kinds of magic, but arcane magic they would have no part of. And it was written right in the rules that
didn't they have to like destroy magic items too?
Yes, they gained power by destroying magic items. If it was, it was the worst, but it was the best. Because, I want to play a barbarian. Everybody rolls their eyes because there goes our magic items. As soon as they find magic items, we have to sneak the magical sword away from the treasure pile so the barbarian doesn't get it. Hey, look, barbarian, there's a potion over there. Go destroy that while we are pulling, wands of wonder and staves of power out of the loot pile. So to say that they are inherently magical sort of goes against the grain of even the history of the game.
Yeah.
Which
we're the ones who are right.
Yeah. Mark us down as right.
Yeah, I don't know. Just it's magic. Just always feels like such a cop out to me, and flattens the stakes of the story.
Having said
into the
that,
ground.
I have to disagree over here. There's some stuff in the chat going on right now that I really quite like. Laura Bart asks, "Didn't real world berserkers think they were mystically empowered?"
but were they
Primrose
really?
Frost follows up, yeah. And from there, in a fantasy world, making a berserker actually mystically empowered instead of just drugged out and thinking they're mystically empowered, that's a fantastical, logical step for a game like D&D, which is all about heroics and magic and really high fantasy. And this is why D&D is extremely hard to playtest. This is such a great example of it.
It's so true. But having said that, I probably wouldn't put this complaint down in a survey because I think mechanically it's fine. I think they shouldn't be able to fly when they're inspired by a falcon, but like, whatever, people like it, it's fine, it's whatever. Yeah, I don't know. To get back to what you were originally saying before I derailed us into Barbarians Aren't Magic Zone. I was surprised when it came to subclasses that they put in this playtest, because most of these classes got a bunch of subclasses to look at. Sorcerer only got the two that were in the player's handbook in 2014, and that surprises me because I think it's easier to come up with like a new or a favored sort of sorcerer subclass to chuck into this playtest than say a warlock. From my perspective anyway. I mean, I'm sure that is different for everyone, but it's, it's bizarre to first of all see a sorcerer who they're like, I don't know, you don't know what your origin is yet. It's in your bloodline, but you don't know until level 3. Okay. It's a bit weird, but all right. But I'm surprised they didn't chuck in at least like aberrant mind sorcerer. That's like the only sorcerer subclass they've written that I haven't edited.
I think Jeremy said in the video that because those were in Tashes or anything that was in Tashes was recent enough that they felt comfortable kind of playtesting those versions alongside the new sorcerer rules. But your point about you getting your subclass at a different level obviously means there needs to be some finickiness there from the GM in terms of making that work if they want to playtest it that way. But I mean, that was, I agree. I would like to see something like the Aberrant Mind or the, just something that feels, I don't know. I wish there was a third option for the sorcerer in the 2014 version, I guess, is what I'm saying. And my understanding is there is going to be 4 sorcerer options in the 2024 version. The last thing that I wanted to touch on from this playtest is the Warlock, which has gotten some changes. Namely, for me, the change from Pact of the Blade, Pact of the Tome, Pact of the Chain are all not Eldritch Invocations anymore. No, other way around. They are not class features. They're now Eldritch Invocations that you can take instead. And the class now can take more Eldritch Invocations. I didn't check every level, but I think it's 2 extra Eldritch Invocations for any level that you're at compared to the 2014 version.
Which also, very quickly, Sorcerer also gets more meta magic feature options, and I think that's good. I think they always should have had that. Sorry, go on.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what I think of this change. Genuinely, I think it's fine. But does anybody else have stronger opinions? I'm
a little surprised they took the Warlock back to Pact magic. That's such a bit of friction, and this is all about streamlining and de-frictionizing the system. That I'm actually kind of pleased that they put that little bit of design friction back into the game.
Yeah, it's interesting because the Warlock has spell slots back on a short rest, as far as I understand, but also has like their own version of arcane recovery called Magical Cunning that allows them to get a slot back as well.
People are really stoked about this, and I think that they're just starved for good features. Warlock players, you are starved for good features. You deserve better than this. It's not that good. It's not that good. It takes a minute to do, and I do like the flavor. Todd in the video mentioned the cool flavor of like you go do a creepy ritual for a minute, and then you've got your spells back. I like that. But I don't like that it takes a full minute and you can only do it once per long rest. So what's happening is instead of getting one spell, I'm getting 3 spells per long rest. And that's so... It's fine. Everything's fine. I just...
It is weird. It is strange because it is
It's one of those things where I agree with the argument of the Warlock lost its identity. What are you going to say, Shawn?
Just a little bit of power creep. Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Just a little.
Well, it also takes away from the sorcerer in a weird way, because one of my other problems with playing a sorcerer in the 2014 version was you also had no way to get slots back. Well, actually, that's not strictly true. You had few ways to get slots back between long rests, except for spell point conversion. The conversion rate was terrible. It's like swapping US dollars for dollary dues. It's absolutely abysmal, or the other way around. And so you'd never want to do it because you'd need cap your ability to use your meta magic options. And the wizard had arcane recovery and the warlock got them back on a short rest. So it felt like you had to be really careful with your spell slots as a sorcerer. So giving warlocks an even greater way to get slots back feels odd to me. I know they only get a few in the first place.
You and I have a different read on the warlock. You're like, it's too powerful. And I'm like, give them more.
It's not about power. It's just about, it's about resource management. You know, like where's the fun of the resource management?
It is. And it's funny because I like the thought of they've gone back to, you know, they've ditched the arcane primal and divine spell lists because they said that you were kind of losing the identity of the different spellcaster classes. And I agree with that. And I agree with the idea of the warlock kind of lost its identity when we just swapped it to normal spellcasting. But I do think that Pact Magic needs to be revised. I don't think we can just go back to what Pact Magic was. And I think a lot of people will accept it that way because it's what they're used to. But I think it is still clunky mechanically. And I think that while we're declunkifying so many things very successfully, particularly in this play packet, that's one that I think needs some declunkifying.
I am writing down 2 quotes. One, where's the fun in the resource management?
Well, somebody, go ahead, Shawn.
There is none. And the second is Declunkify. I'm just going to make a game called Declunkify.
Yes.
That sounds like an indie hit. I'd play Declunkify.
I would. Yeah.
It's about a sad little robot cleaning out their house before they move.
Oh, I was going to go way more depressing. I was going to be like, it's like a Wall-E style robot who's got to like clear out a warehouse because all the humans have died.
There's definitely a junkyard somewhere.
Yeah, it's got a robot in the junkyard, and we can turn up a dial that says sad or happy, just kind of looking back at the audience like we're on The Price is Right.
I have like 20 other things that I thought that I wanted to say, but I don't know what they were right now, so hit me up on Twitter later, see if I remember.
Ooh,
my last word, the jump spell, I like it. And I never thought I'd see the day. Cast as a bonus action, jump up to 30 feet for only 10 feet of movement. Mwah. I love the jump spell now.
Yes, much better,
That's a good jump spell.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
It gave Ben stank face. Yeah. The champion fighter, much better now. I love that they can give themselves inspiration at the beginning of every turn because then that does make them feel like they are just kind of fighter, but like, I don't know, just inherently better at stuff. And it really amplifies that 19 or a 20 crit. That's great. Love that for them. But I will say, remarkable athlete. I was so angry in the video when they were like, well, actually, you could have always applied it to initiative rolls. Then say that. Okay, whatever, it's fine. We've said it now, and that's good. But you still only get the bonus to your jump distance equal to your strength modifier. Just give us an extra 5 feet, because any other distance, more or less, if it's not a multiple of 5, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If I can jump plus 4 feet, then I am not making it the full 5 feet. And so then it doesn't matter. If I'm jumping 6 feet, I can only jump 5 feet. So it doesn't matter. Just give us an extra 5 feet. Do not base it on my modifier. I'm so mad.
Get off the grid. Get off the grid, Dael. Leave the grid.
Never!
Yeah, it's time for tape measures and physical terrain. That's the way of the future. Or virtual tabletops.
How does one measure? So if 1 inch is 5 feet, how does one measure on the tape measure? I can jump 3 extra feet. Are you doing that maths at the table, Ben?
I mean, you could, because most tape measures would have...
But are you doing it?
Look, I play on a grid for now, but...
Apparently I have a lot of strong, angry emotions today. I apologize.
From the start of the...
I got my voice back and immediately decided to be loud.
I must...
I thought it was right.
Vengeance! Anyway, speaking of vengeance, last quick bit of news before we disappear is that Ghostfire is going to be at Big Bad Con with a panel with our lead producer, Joe Rasso, and he's doing a panel called TTRPG Freelancing at Ghostfire at Big Bad Con with Andrew Bishkinski. Sorry, Andrew, if I got that wrong. I've never tried to pronounce your surname before. Aaron Roberts, Ethan Yen, and Anthony Joyce Rivera with Joe Rasso. If you're going to be at Big Bad Con, feel free to go up to Joe and say hi, and also go check out that panel. And if you're in Australia, James Hake and I are going to be at PAX Oz doing a panel called Homebrew to Hardcover. And we're also back with our live play again, Sailing the Stars. More info on those will be incoming. But yes, we are there. Come say hi at the places where we will be
at. Yeah.
Yes.
You should give a code word for the Lorecast listeners to give to
that's
Joe.
a good idea.
But then don't tell Joe.
Fuzzy Pickles.
What was that, James?
Just tell Joe Fuzzy Pickles.
All right,
Fuzzy
great.
Pickles.
Perfect. I don't know if Joe listens to this, so we'll find out. Otherwise, that'll be an episode, I think. If you've enjoyed this episode, if you're watching us on YouTube or on Spotify or any audio platform, feel free to give us likes, stars, whatever it happens to be. We appreciate them. It feeds our eldritch power and allows us to come back week after week. Otherwise, you can catch us live on Twitch at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on a Monday, or it is Tuesday, 9 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Man, I think that's the smoothest I've ever done that. My name's Ben Byrne, here with James Hake, Dael Kingsmill, Shawn Merwin, and we will be back next week for another episode of the Eldritch Lorecast. Ba-da-da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da.
Ooh, got a little spicy with that one.
I was amped. I felt, yeah.